Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Happy Thursday. My name is Beth Rossner. I'm the interim CEO here at Berkeley Chamber of Commerce, working from home today. We are very excited to welcome longtime chamber members Endsight, Managed IT Services, here today to present on cybersecurity training. From their team, we've got Presley Tronley, our marketing associate. Hi, Presley. We also have Brandon Galvin, IT Services Executive, with us today. Hi, Brandon. And our presenter today, Sales and Marketing Manager, Jason Claus. Hello, Jason.
Hi, Beth. Thanks for having us. We're thrilled to be here and get to partner with the chamber to do a training like this. So appreciate you. Is it okay if I just get started?
Yeah, just wanted to let everyone know we are recording this, so we can provide it upon request for later use. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat box. We'll be monitoring that throughout. So Jason, take it away. Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you. Well, yeah. Hi, everybody. My name's Jason Claus, just like Beth said. I lead the sales and marketing organization here at Endsight. Among other things, Endsight does, we do computer system support for our clients. That's a picture of our beautiful building there in Berkeley. We have about 300 local clients that we look after, and we do things like help desk and systems administration, long-term planning and strategy. Cybersecurity has been and will continue to be a central piece of helping our clients run and maintain computer systems that properly serve their organizational goals. And today, I have the privilege of getting to share with you an end user cybersecurity training that we've been doing with our clients for a very long time. And we made the decision a few years ago to open source this because there's just an ever increasing threat that impacts our broader community, and anything that we can be doing to help folks adopt good quality habits from a cybersecurity perspective is going to help them stay safer, and that's better for everybody. But before I get into the habits, I am gonna share some scary information with you. I don't think you need to be scared because it's just the truth. It's just our reality, and hopefully it impresses a little bit upon folks what we're up against and why it's important to be giving this a little bit of extra thought. What we're looking at here. This is just a graph of all the different vulnerabilities that these are the good guys, right? So the companies that manufacture antivirus software and firewalls and all of the technology that's used traditionally to keep an organization safe, as well as software developers like Microsoft or Oracle, or insert the Slack. It would be another example. All software has flaws in it. That's inescapable. And this is a graph or a depiction of the known vulnerabilities that get reported year in and year out. And you can see that it goes back pretty far. And at about 2017, you can see a dramatic increase in just the amount of known issues that could be exploited by a bad actor. And as you get into 2020, you can see that data was incomplete at the time of this slide, but it was projected. And since then, we can confirm that has gone up. We don't have the actual slide from the source yet, so we haven't put that in there. What we do know about 2020 is that we saw more of this increase in threat activity. Just to give you some numbers to calibrate around, we saw 5.6 billion with a B malware attacks in 2020. Now this is kind of interesting. That's actually down 43% from the previous year. And the question then becomes, why is that? Well, the reason it's down is not because there was less malware. It's because everybody started working from home that year, as we all know. And many of the corporate organizations that report that data out lost that visibility into those endpoint systems. They're more exposed as a result of working from home. And that's a really important point that we'll get into, but it necessitates and intensifies the point that the end user, you, me, we're what's under attack, and we need to be safe. But just to give you some more, there were 304 million ransomware attacks. That's a 62% increase from last year. 4.8 trillion with a T intrusion attempts. That's a 20% increase from the previous year. 81.9 million cryptojacking attacks. That's up 28% from the previous year. Cryptojacking is when an attacker tries to take control of some aspect of your machine and then use it for mining cryptocurrency, which kind of leads into the why. Why is this? Why have we seen such a dramatic increase? And it has everything to do with an attacker's ability to monetize this. 2017, 2016, that was the time period that bad actors, threat actors started to recognize that you could take payments anonymously, which allowed for the first variations of ransomware. But you can see that according to this graph, they've gotten more bold. And so that the average ransomware payment now is over $200,000. The average downtime that occurs when an organization gets nipped is just under 20 days, right? And the total business impact of one of these attacks is measured in hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this is information that comes from an organization called Coveware. This is so bad that this company, Coveware, their whole business is coming alongside organizations that have been encrypted and their data has been held ransom, and then helping them to negotiate an outcome with the attackers. And it's just, to me, I don't know how that hits you. To me, that just seems wrong, but it's a necessary business. And it's one that's emerged as a result of this. What this been contributing to most of us, because most of us aren't the owners of the business. We're not going to have to contend with the impact of this. But what it does do is it creates this fog of just threat that creates anxiety. And this list of different attack vectors, different ways that a bad actor might be able to take advantage of us. When I talk to people, they describe feeling like this. And so the thing that I want you to hear, I know I just shared a whole bunch of scary stuff with you. If it's making you feel like this, I just want you to hear that that's okay. It's making everybody feel this way. Fortunately, there's some good habits and some good hygiene that if we work on that, and if we partner on that, our clients partnering with us, if you and your IT provider working together, there's a lot that can be done to really head off sort of the brunt of what's happening out there. Now, before we start getting into that, I want to go back to the very beginning of the internet. There's a wonderful article written in the Washington Post. If you Google a flaw in the design, you'll find this article. This talks about the creation of the internet. It also it confirms that Al Gore did not create the internet. It was created by researchers. And their goal was not to create an information superhighway. Their goal was to share research, and they gave zero thought to whether people should have to that you'd have to control access to information. The whole point was to share information. And so what I want to drive home here is that down to the very core, the code of the internet was never created to be secure. And so over the years, what we've attempted to do organizationally is try to bolt cybersecurity or belt security on to the technology that we use. And we're not going to go all the way back to feudalism, but this castle does a good job of kind of describing sort of the legacy way of supporting a computer, of securing a computer network. You put all of your resources behind some sort of perimeter that you can protect with a wall or a moat or something like that, like, the digital equivalent of that. And then all of your servers, all of your people, all of your computer systems, it all gets back behind this wall. And the security model is a fairly straightforward one at that point, right? Anybody outside of the wall is unsafe, and anybody inside of the wall is safe. And that graph that I was showing you earlier on before it spiked, that model worked for a very long time. But some things have happened over the last, say, 10 years that have really degraded this model. Cloud computing is a huge one. Most of us don't have email servers anymore, for example. We use Office 365 or G Suite or something like that. Social media. Most of our organizations, I know the Chamber specifically, has very good reasons to use social media. It also creates all kinds of opportunities for a threat actor to take advantage of somebody or get somebody to click on something that they should not. We also all want to work on our own devices. And it might be that you have a laptop that's provided by your corporate organization, or maybe that the organization allows you to bring your own in. I have a corporate device. I also have an iPhone that's my phone, and I want to get my resources on it. And so from a technology perspective and from a security perspective, we've got to manage that. And this is just a handful of them, but these things conspire, and that model, that castle, it doesn't look quite so secure, quite so helpful, and it looks really outdated and clunky as a result of this. And the pandemic did not cause these things, but the pandemic accelerated all of these trends and created all kinds of opportunities for threat actors to take advantage of us and to take advantage of our organizations. And so, long roundabout way, what I want you to try to understand here as you're trying to figure out, okay, what am I supposed to do? You need to think about it within the context of what's happening, the broader context. So we need to move as a community, as a business community, as an organization, as individual organizations. We need to move from this older model, this older perimeter model, to one where the user is at the center of the security model, and we're continually identifying that user and then verifying who that user is so that we can provision resources and monitor their behavior. And you can see it's a much more sophisticated approach. And you don't have to worry about that. That's up to your IT provider to layer in the proper controls and the proper technology to deliver that to you. That's part of the partnership. But you are very much at the center of this model, and it will fail if you're irresponsible in your behavior as a digital citizen. So we're going to spend some time talking about good habits and tips and tricks that can be used as a user to help keep yourself safe. My hope is that nothing that you hear from me today is going to be earth-shattering or brand new. Typically, it should be kind of Kellogg's cornflakes for you. Taste it again for the first time. And I hope that's what you get. But if not, and there's something new, then you will learn something new and you can apply it. Now, I said in the background, whoever your IT organization is, whether it's Endsight or whether it's an internal corporate, internal group or somebody else, they should be working with you to implement some level of control, some level of defense and hardening from a technology perspective to keep your organization safe. But you can't rely on that entirely. Right. Endsight didn't come up with this list. This is the control set that Endsight uses with our clients. We didn't come up with it. It comes from an organization called the Center for Internet Security. If you Google it, Center for Internet Security, CIS20 is another thing you could Google, and it would give you more information about this control set. And then your organization, as they apply that, they should also be bringing to bear more advanced technologies that are going to do a better job of either preventing new and more advanced threats, or stopping and then remediating breaches that happen. And this is just one. This is an example of a technology that Endsight has recently begun implementing with our partners that allows us to do just that. Identify threats more quickly, and in the event that one of our clients is attacked and breached, intervene much more quickly, segregate that the affected areas, and then begin to remediate. And so, as a sort of a hack, if you're one of the leaders in the organization, if your IT organization is not bringing these things to your attention, it's a conversation that you should begin having with them. Because they're very much necessary in today's world, in our opinion. Again, that's what your providers in the background should be doing, but it's a partnership. So how can we be more like these two very attractive people and work in partnership together, which is what that picture is supposed to depict. I hope it does the job. So here's some habits, particularly if you're working from home. So on the home network, Here's some things to be mindful of. One, you should make sure that you've got good passwords on the home network. Most of the, Comcast, AT&T, they ship with passwords that are okay, but you should change those, and you should change them with some level of frequency. Once a year is probably the bare minimum. A best practice would probably be once a quarter. This irritates the bejesus out of people, but it's actually, but it is a good best practice. If you're not a member of the family, it's not a good idea to be sharing your Wi-Fi passwords with others. Now, that's been less of an issue around my house because we haven't had a lot of guests, but we're hoping that's going to change. But we're not sharing the password with folks when they come over. They can. It's not that big of a deal for many people because most folks don't, their smartphone will connect through their wireless carrier. But just a good best practice to keep in mind. And then also don't forget about your smart devices. I have a 2-year-old. We've got one of those devices that makes background noise so that he can go to sleep, and it can connect to the internet. And there's no reason, at least none that I can think of, except for like being able to download new sounds. But it can connect. And so I have to make a decision. If I don't need it to connect, I probably shouldn't have it connect. If I do have it connect, I should make sure that there's a really strong password on it. Same thing might go for your refrigerator, right? If there's a good reason to connect it, great. Just make sure it's got a good password. But if there's no good reason, probably don't connect it. All right. On your workstations. So when you get up, even if you're working from home, because this is just a good habit, when you get up from your machine, lock it. Control Alt Delete on a Windows machine will lock it up. I forget what it is exactly on a Mac, but there's the corresponding keyboard shortcut on a Mac. Never share your password with anybody. What we see sometimes from a social engineering perspective, folks might get a telephone call from somebody pretending to be Microsoft, or getting a call pretending to be from some sort of tech group, and they will ask for a username and password. That is not normal. That should throw your spidey sense off. Use your work devices for work and your home devices for home. I think with distance learning with the kids, this has been a really important thing for us. I don't want the kids on my corporate machine. I don't want the wife on my corporate machine. There's no real reason for it. And while there is an investment to get personal machines, it does keeping those two segregated keeps me safer and keeps the organization safer. And then for Endsight's clients, we ask them to leave their machines on at night so that we can run maintenance in the background. If you have another company like Endsight that looks after things, I would refer to them. But running good maintenance on your machines, going back to that list of controls, that's a core best practice for somebody in our line of work, to make sure that your machines are up to date and patched. All right, when you're on the internet, only install software from safe sources. And I think you should go as far as this. If the Windows Store, there's a level of scrutiny on software that can be distributed through that store. The Apple Store, there's a level of scrutiny that can have you feel reasonably safe that if you're downloading it from one of those two stores, that you're safe. There is a Google Store. But you're taking more risk with that. It is less scrutinized than those other two stores. If you absolutely have to download software from a different source, it might be a good idea to consult your IT group before doing that. That's a very clear attack vector for a threat actor. Only trust the trustworthy with your passwords. I know that in the previous slide I said don't give anyone your password, and let me just put a pin in this one. I'll come back to it. Right? If you log into a website, you should also log out of that website. And this is a lot of people are guilty of just Xing out of this. It does create the potential for a threat actor to take advantage of you. And it's not hard to just log out. Now, going back to that last bullet, that previous bullet point about trusting only the trustworthy with your passwords. When you're on a website that requires a login of some kind, make sure that you look for the green lock or the secure connection. What that's called is a secure socket layer or an SSL connection. And you should only trust that type of a website with your login information. I use Chrome as my web browser, and so this is what it looks like to me if I log into if I go to a site that if I go to a website. Green means good. It means two things. One, the connection between my web browser and that web server, it's encrypted, which affords me a level of security. It also means that a third party, the SSL, the organization that issued that SSL certificate, it's able to verify that the person that website is who they say they are. That's why it's green. If it's red, you should not put information in it. I would take it a step further. If it's red, you should probably not. You shouldn't trust anything on that site. It's not. Technically incredibly difficult to get your site certified, and anybody that's not going to take that step should not be trusted. All right, email. So email is the number one way that a threat actor is going to try to take advantage of a user. So don't open attachments unless you're sure they're safe. And by sure, I think the hack is you're expecting the attachment and you've at least verified by phone with the person that sent it to you that they meant to send it to you. The attachments come as PDFs or Office documents. There's all kinds of different file attachments, and you shouldn't trust any of them unless you've been able to verify that the source intended to send it to you and it's meant for you to open. If you suspect an email is malicious, you should not open it. Instead, you should. Most of the email systems that we use today have an ability to mark it as spam or to mark it as potentially malicious, and that will get it out of your inbox. And that's probably the best way to do that. You should check the sender's email very, very closely, because we all get busy and we all have stuff that we need to pay attention to. But you can see here, there's a very big difference between these two emails. But if you're really busy, you could easily mistake the bob.smith at GRNAIL for a legitimate Gmail email address. And then finally, inside of email that gets sent to you, you should read every link before you click on it. And a power tip here: if you hover over the link in the left-hand corner, your email system will show you where that link is going to take you. So those are some of the tips and tricks around email and protecting yourself from an email perspective. At Endsight, we use Microsoft 365, and I kind of threw this one in there. If you're an Office 365 user for email, Microsoft did a really good job of exposing the junk filter in their email system, and that's how you would do that. The Gmail has the same thing, so you can see it there. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel like you may have been breached, or something might have happened, or you went somewhere that you shouldn't, filled something out that you shouldn't, and you want to report it, the place to go is the Internet Crime Complaint Center, or IC3. I think the web address is ic3.gov. You can report it, and you should. You should also be advised that this is a heavily used site, unfortunately, and so you might not get a response. But this is where you would go to report something. All right, we're almost done, and at about our halfway point here. So just some personal hacks that I want to leave with you to help you keep yourself safe. Always use a lock screen on your mobile phone. Most of us, if we are accessing corporate email on our phone, like what I described earlier in the presentation, that's going to be enforced anyway by the corporation. But if you don't have that, it's unwise to leave the phone exposed. You should only give out personal or sensitive information on phone calls that you've initiated. The most common scenario here, or the best example I could share with you, would be that the IRS does not call people and ask them for information. They don't have to. They're the IRS. If they really want at you, they're gonna pay you a visit, right? So always be suspicious of telephone calls that you receive where someone is trying to ascertain personal information. This one people don't like, but investing in identity theft protection is a really good idea these days. It's not super expensive. Most corporations are offering it these days as some sort of there's some sort of augmented cost, and they're offering it as an employee benefit. Endsight offers it to us as an employee benefit. We use the the service from LifeLock, but there's a lot of different ones out there. So and they're all reasonably good and competitively priced. The other thing that you could really think about doing is investing in a password manager. And we'll send out some links. We've actually written a blog. Samuel Hatton, one of my colleagues, he wrote a great article that's on our blog about different types of password managers. Presley, LastPass, right? I always forget LastPass as an option. I use a tool so that's a great one to consider. And then I personally, my family and I, we use 1Password and have years. There's a cost associated with those, but it allows me to just manage, not only keep track of my passwords, but manage really long passwords that I don't have to remember. And then finally, this deserves its own slide. If you have not set up multi-factor authentication on your email systems and Facebook and the different websites that you use, it is a really good best practice to consider doing that. And in broad terms, what multi-factor authentication is that you set it up, and there's videos that you can walk through to help you do it. In addition to having your username and password to log into email, for example, there's also an authentication application that lives on your smartphone, or maybe you receive a text with a numeric code that you then put in as a third or as a second or multiple authentication factor. And while this isn't a magic bullet, if you learn nothing else from or hear nothing else from this presentation, if you're not doing that for the primary sites that you use all the time, do that, and it will keep you. It will dramatically increase your security posture, and you will be a lot more safer than you would be without it. Particularly if you're using a cloud-based email server for your business. Everyone and their uncle knows how to get to the logon for Gmail and how to get to the logon for Office 365, Microsoft 365. And then they also might have your email address. So they've got one credential. And if you don't have multi-factor authentication, even if you have a strong password, there's tools out there that could be used to get in. And we've seen that happen on many occasions where folks did not have multi-factor authentication set up. So of course, I'll also give you my contact information. So if you have more questions about that, we'll be happy to talk to you about it. All right, we're at the halfway point here, or maybe 2/3 of the way. We can stop if there's any questions.
Yes, we do have 3 questions in the chat.
Okay, great.
The first one being, do we know what the cause was for such a big jump in 2017?
Broadly speaking, I think the real jump in 2017 was the realization on the part of the I guess we'll call it the hacking community that you could monetize this. Now, because of that pushed a lot of the manufacturers and the developers into kind of hyperdrive because they didn't want their software or their tools to be the one that's the cause of whatever havoc was being wreaked across the environment. And so that's what we think happened. I don't know exactly.
Okay, and then our next question, are bad actors in ransomware attacks primarily domestic or international? And then the next one is independent or state sponsored?
I think the best answer there is yes. I don't want to get too long-winded here. The hacking community it's organizing itself into communities where they collaborate, and the attacks are getting more and more sophisticated, and the payouts are going higher, which means it demands better attention from a threat actor, right? So once upon a time, or early on, the more unsophisticated type of attack was a phishing attack against a group of email addresses. Someone clicks on something they shouldn't, which then triggered an automated ransomware malware attack. It would encrypt data, right? No real interaction from a human being. And we're seeing less and less of those these days. And what we're seeing more of, even in our market segment, so these are small to medium enterprises, someone gets tricked into clicking on something they shouldn't, and then instead of it kind of stupidly triggering some sort of automated attack, a human being now takes control of the environment, or gets access to the environment, and then is going to root around for a while to figure out what they can see. Who can they attack? How can they leverage this asset that they've just discovered to maybe attack somebody in your supply chain, or maybe attack one of your customers, or can they find your backup, right? So it's gotten more and more sophisticated. And it's state actors, it's these communities that I'm describing, it's international and it's domestic. And it's not going away anytime soon, right? There's it's going to, this is, the next 5 years, I think, are going to be a lot more like the wild, wild west than they are like the, like an orderly environment. Not the answer that person wants, I'm certain, and I'm sorry.
You kind of touched on this one. Are small businesses frequently targeted by bad actors, or are the attacks primarily focused on big companies with greater resources?
It's both, but what we are seeing, smaller companies with fewer resources, there's value there, and attackers are recognizing that there's value there, and the opportunity, the risk is low for them because those networks are less protected, and the payout is potentially high. And so we're seeing attention being shifted that direction. Not that attention isn't being given in great detail to the larger organizations as well. But last year, 68% of all businesses in the United States were attacked in some way. Remember that infiltration attempt. There were trillions of them. And so not all of them, not everybody was impacted by it, but there was a lot of probing going on, and we expect to see that continue.
Okay, and then our last question, the position seems to be to never pay ransom. Are there ways to gain back control of hacked servers without paying?
There are, and that's a little bit beyond the scope of what we're trying to do here. To whoever, why don't you? We're going to throw my contact information up, and if you'd like to have a conversation about that, I would.
Yeah, that was me, Jason.
Oh.
I was curious because we just heard about that large hack on the oil company, and everyone told them not to pay, and then we found out they paid whatever it was, $5 million.
Yep.
So wouldn't a company like them have the resources to not pay and gain back control?
Well, I want to point back to some of the other things that I've mentioned. The attack on that pipeline, I'm not an expert on that attack. I can tell you that if they paid the ransom, they had no choice but to do it. And there's a whole bunch of good reasons why you would pay it. I think I read a quote this morning from I think it was the pipeline CEO. It was like, it made me sick paying that, but it was more important to get the pipeline running again. And when we looked at it, that was a reasonable thing to do. And maybe that money didn't even come out of their pocket. Maybe that money came out of their cyber insurance liability policy. So it's hard to say, right? The truth is, there's a lot that can happen in between an initial egress or an initial access to a network and an attack. And there's things that we can be doing as in partnership, right? So a well-maintained computer network that's hardened against the stuff, that's not most of the companies in our market segment, right? Most of the companies that would be members of the chamber or small to medium businesses, they have some cybersecurity in place, but they don't have the rigor in place that really is going to keep them safe, right? That's what needs to happen. But that plus the things that we're talking about here will increase the likelihood that an attacker cannot do some of the things that you're talking about, and you could head off a potential attack. Now, if an attack happens and they were able to get the backup, you don't have there's no fallback position. And so you really have no choice but to pay the ransom or go out of business or make do without it or something like that. So it is a very serious thing. And it's one of the reasons why the partnership is so important, why it's got to be layered. Again, probably not the answer you want. And I'm sorry. It is the truthful answer though. Any other questions?
Nope, that is it so far. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I have one more.
Sure.
I'm sure you might get into it. So if someone were to hire Endsight, like a small to medium business in Berkeley, what's like the first thing that you guys do? Do you like do a wellness check or like a full audit, or how do you even start to protect a business?
Well, with our clients, first we'd want to really have a conversation about holistically, how are you looking after your computer systems, right? And if there's a good fit for us to work together, what tends to happen is that cybersecurity is one of many things that are contributing to an experience that particular company doesn't find acceptable. Right. It's not just that I feel like I'm insecure. It's that I also don't get really good advice. My systems are pretty old. I don't get when I call for help, it takes a long time for me to get help. Like there's lots of things that kind of would stack up that would make Endsight a good fit. And we'd have to have that conversation first. And then assuming that there's good alignment there and having Endsight come alongside as your IT group, if that makes sense, then from a cybersecurity perspective, we're going to do an assessment of what you have. We're going to do a comparison of what you have to our best practice operating standards. And they're going to align with that slide that I was showing you earlier with the CIS controls. And we're going to expose all kinds of gaps. And that's not a bad thing, right? Now we know what we need to work on. And then over time, we're going to go to work closing those gaps with our clients. And so if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, I don't think that my current group is really sophisticated enough to help me, that might be a great reason for us to chat. If on the other hand, you're pretty confident in your whoever you're working with now, you're pretty confident that they've been doing a good job. Then maybe the thing for you to do would be to just go, hey, what can you tell me about these CIS controls, the CIS 20, and how are we measuring against something like that? And if it's not that framework, what framework are you using? Now, the hack should be if they don't answer you clearly and cleanly and have a really a convincing story as to what they're doing, then that means nothing's being done. And that happens a lot in my business because this is a pretty resource intense activity. And the vast majority of my competitors they're not sophisticated enough to do that and answer all your support requests. Again, very long-winded answer, and I apologize.
No, it's great. Thank you.
All right. Is that it, Presley? Keep going. All right, we're almost done here. What I want to do next is I want to walk everybody kind of through two things. One, I want to walk you through the behavioral mechanism that drives a social engineering attack. When a social attacker is trying to take advantage of you as a user, he's trying to inspire fear, he's trying to inspire some sort of gain, or he's trying to trigger emotional responses from you to get you to do something that you should not do. And he's playing on something very specific, or she is playing on something very specific. It's best illustrated this way. When I think of someone that I have a great deal of respect for, this man comes to mind. And I know he's moved on and passed on, but if he didn't, and he came and I ran into him and he said, "Hey, Jason, would you like a Pepsi?" I would say, "Well, wow, thank you, Mr. Mandela, but I don't like Pepsi." He said, "Oh, okay. Well, how about a Coke?" I'm like, "Wow, Coke's my favorite. I would love that." I would take the Coke, I would open the Coke, I would drink the Coke. Hopefully he and I would have a delightful conversation. Now, if by comparison, I ran into this guy, and he said, "Hey, how you doing, pal? You want a Coke? You want a Pepsi?" There is no way I'm going to take that Coke or Pepsi, right? My point here is that I'm a human being. And as a human being, I use context to try to help me decide what is safe and what is unsafe. And a social attacker is going to be playing upon this. They're going to be trying to do things but by pretending to be Nelson Mandela sometimes, or by trying to trigger some sort of fear circuit to make me do something that I wouldn't otherwise do. And so the broad operating procedure here needs to be that when you're using your technology, everyone and everything online is a stranger, and you should always be suspicious of strangers. And one caveat here should be, or until you've been able to verify that they are not a stranger, right? You should be suspicious of everything and everyone all the time, using definition number 2, cautious distrust. And if you remember very little else from this presentation, there's multi-factor authentication and suspicion. Those 2 things will serve you very well. So here's an example of how you can leverage this. So this would be an email that's sent saying, "Hey, your spam filter you've got email in your quarantine," which is kind of triggering. I want to check that, because maybe there's email in there that shouldn't be, right? But you can see the first thing I'm going to check, that email address doesn't seem right compared to what I'm looking for, right? Why am I getting an email from KSU? That's not the college I go to. But what about this, right? Office 365, that looks right. What about this? That looks okay. This is the attacker. It's the guy on the street trying to look like Nelson Mandela, right? And so I need to be aware of that. If I hover over the button, I can see that it wants to take me to a place that I should not, that's not where it's saying that I should go, right? So there's a number of different elements in this email that should be triggering my spidey sense and making me suspicious. And an email like this should just be put to, I would click on spam, on phishing, and let Microsoft deal with it and get it out of my inbox. I'd be done with it. Here's one. Now, this is a legitimate email. I've gotten this one before when I've reset my password, but it's not going to come from Outlook. It's going to come from PayPal. So that's my first sign. And then the other thing is that it's just trying to trigger that, oh my gosh, somebody's trying to get in my account. I got to get in there and get me to click on something. Now, what I've done I've gotten this, and then I have opened up a browser. I didn't click on anything. I opened up a browser, typed in the PayPal URL, and then logged in myself and realized that it was a phishing attempt. And so that's kind of the workaround there. But again, this one should go should be marked as a phishing attempt. Now, let's say you accidentally do click on something. What should you do? Oh, hey, 40, can you? That's my 2-year-old just barged in. And he just listened to me. Well, that was hopeful thinking. He's not listening to me. Okay. So on an email address, if you find yourself landing on a website, on a web page, and you're not so certain that, maybe you're thinking, oh, I probably shouldn't have clicked on that. How could you diagnose the URL? So here's how you would do that. So you can see, this is how a website address breaks down. And what you want to do, you want to look for the .com or the .net or the .org. And from that dot, you want to go to the left until you find the next dot, right? So in my example, from the dot in front of the com to the dot in between the W and T, that's the actual domain name. So up above, when we look at our example, it's tube-gif-converter is the domain name. That is not Amazon. Even though you've got Amazon over there on the other side, that's actually a subdomain that's been placed in there, right? But that's how you can diagnose where you're at. And if you find yourself in the wrong place, just X out of it. If you've accidentally put information in there, you should go to Amazon immediately and reset your password. And you may even want to report that to the IC3, right? If you're an Endsight client, this would be the type of thing you would call our response center about, right? Or you would call your current provider about. All right, suspicion. I want to end on that, right? Definition number 2. Actually, I want to end on 2 things. Multi-factor authentication. It's a pain, but it keeps you safe. And be suspicious. Lastly, if you'd like to just get kind of routine tips and tricks and updates on things, we write a weekly newsletter called 365 Tip of the Week. It's a free newsletter. It's focused on delivering one tip every week about the Microsoft suite. We don't cover the G Suite products, unfortunately. It's a pretty big time commitment to do both, and most of our clients are on 365. But we also include a weekly cybersecurity tip. And so if you'd like to sign up for that, you can go to endsight.net/365, and we'd be happy to add you to the distribution list for that. Here is the list of links that I referenced in our conversation. We'll make sure that you guys have that. And with that, we are done. So if there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
So you guys don't work with G Suite clients, is that correct?
It's not that we don't work with G Suite clients. We actually have a number of clients that are on G Suite. This has more to do with the fact that our sales and marketing team's not a very big team, and you kind of have to pick and choose where you're going to do coverage. And so we just kind of decided the vast majority of our clients are using the Microsoft product set. So we decided to mass our coverage there.
Great.
Yeah.
Any questions for Jason? Jason, this has been just absolutely eye-opening. You think you know a lot about cybersecurity, and then watching this, there's a lot to be cautious of out there. I'm trying not to be too terrified.
I think I also, if you practice these basic habits, you're going to be you'll be a lot safer. Right. So it's probably good to be a little cautious. I don't know if you should be, terrified, but it's just kind of the world we live in. That's why we do this. That's why we'll do anyone else that's listening to this. If your organization could benefit from this training, we're happy to do it for you at no charge. If there's other organizations that need this, we're happy to do this training for you at no charge. We think the world will be a better place when more of us are just being a little bit more deliberate and rigorous about the way we interact with our technology day in and day out.
Wonderful. Well,
Yep.
Thank you again to you and the whole team. This has been great. I look forward to working with you again. Hopefully you'll share your tips with us and we can pass those along to our members.
My pleasure. Yeah. We'll happily do that. Yep.
Wonderful.
All right.
Next newsletter with your tips.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone. We look forward to seeing you again in the future, and we'll get this up on our website for future use if that's okay with the Endsight team.
Absolutely.
Great. All right. Well,
Well, thanks
see y'all
everybody.
next one. Have a great
Yep.
day.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.